Hey YouTube, it's Threshold Death 555 David. It's been a little bit, 2 years to be exact, but I'm not gonna go into this whole reason of why I've been gone and everything. Just I've taken some time off. I've kind of missed doing this, and I felt like what better way to come back with my favorite albums of the year video that I usually do every year. But yeah. So we're just gonna go ahead and get into that. There was a lot of cool music that came out this year, a lot of great releases, some comebacks even, which is pretty cool. But before I get into my actual list, I'm gonna start with some honorable mentions. Well, mainly stuff that's not full length, so just like EPs, splits, and shit like that. But so if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get going here. The first one is Iron Sword Underground. This is an EP that came out earlier this month, actually, so at the tail end of this year. But it's really, really cool. And what's really cool about this new Iron Sword release is now this band has Nuit and Phil Ross from Manila Road in it. And for any of you who are aware of Iron Sword, you know that their Manila Road influence is very, very strong. And that is even more so with this release. I mean, this is almost like what Gruesome and Blazing Stone do with Death and Running Wild. It's like they're not covering Manila Road songs, but this sounds a hell of a lot like Manila Road. What's also cool is they have some guest drummers on here who are previous Manila Road members as well, which are Rick Fisher and Randy Fox, which is really, really cool. 4 tracks. Every song is awesome, and they've already confirmed that a follow-up is coming out sometime this year, like pretty early on this year. I don't remember exactly when, but yeah. The new Iron Sword EP, Underground, is fucking killer. Next, yeah, these are all listed on my phone, so that's why I keep looking down, or looking at my phone, as you can see. Next is going to be Exhumed with Beyond the Dead. Exhumed are one of my favorite death metal bands. In my eyes, they can really do no wrong, and that continues here. And even though this may not be a full length or anything, although, they just put out a full length last year, so. But yeah, really killer songs. It just Exhumed doing what they do best. So if you love Exhumed, this one's a no-brainer, obviously. But yeah. Had to include it with this non-full length list for sure. So, Exhumed, Beyond the Dead. Next up is the new Undergang or Undergang EP, which is also fucking killer. Just more filthy, disgusting death metal from Undergang, as they always do. This is no different. So, yeah, the new EP from Undergang is fucking absolutely killer death metal. And last is the Worm and Dream Unending split, Starpath. This, I thought, was absolutely phenomenal. My favorite side was definitely, I definitely preferred the Worm side to the Dream Unending side, but both are great. They really, really are. I think Worm are probably one of the most, just interesting extreme metal bands going on right now. There's just their blend of death doom and black metal, and now they're even incorporating just even some other kind of elements in there as well, like funeral doom elements, and just these keyboard passages that they've been putting in more and more when they release newer stuff. Just yeah, Worm is a band that's just absolutely killing it right now, and I think probably one of the best for newer extreme metal today. So yeah. Worm and Dream Unending, Starpath, fucking phenomenal, honestly. So, with the honorable mentions out of the way, we are now going to go on to the actual list. Before I get started with the actual list, I'm going to say that I don't really have anything physically to show, unfortunately, except for one CD. This has just kind of been a rough year. I didn't really have money to buy physical stuff this year, unfortunately. I picked up a lot of digital albums on Bandcamp for a lot of these releases I'm about to talk about, but unfortunately, nothing physical to show. But yeah. Anyway, first up is Ahab with the Choral Tombs. This is one of my favorite funeral doom bands. This album I thought was great, and I thought it was a step up from the Boats of the Glen Carreg from 2015. I personally think it's a lot better, and I don't even dislike that album. I thought that album was pretty good, but this is just, the songs just caught me a lot more on this one, I felt. So, Ahab, The Coral Tombs. Second is Hellripper, Warlocks and Grim Withered Hags. James McBain is a fucking, just, I don't know, man. He's a master of this black speed thing that he does, and he even incorporated some different elements into this album, which are not like the typical black speed Hellripper sound. He brought some new elements into this one to just keep it interesting and different, but still plenty of just killer riffs and just everything you would expect from James's overall style. Yeah, Hellripper's great. They continue to release awesome stuff. This album's no different. Next up is Wretched Fate with Carnal Heresy. Swedish death metal band that are kind of carrying the torch for that bloodbath sound, particularly on, like, I would say, like the Fathomless Mastery and Nightmares Made Flesh, that kind of stuff. But still enough to where Wretched Fate is like doing their own thing and they are their own entity and not just a copycat band. But yeah, this is just a killer death metal album. Loved it. Next up is Periphery with Periphery 5, Gent is Not a Genre. And this is the one CD that I had to show for this release. I talked about Periphery on here several times. They're one of my favorite prog metal bands, one of my favorite modern metal bands in general. I just have so much respect for these guys. The one thing I will say is, similar to the last album, Hailstand, their one electronic track on here just doesn't really do much for me. Didn't really care for it, but everything else on here is fucking great. There's plenty of heavy shit, just crushing riffs and just awesome songwriting. Love it. And Periphery just continues to release awesome shit. So, yeah. Periphery 5, Gent is Not a Genre. Next up is Nabal Viscaris with Exul. It's been a little while since we heard from Nabal Viscaris, but this is a cool album. I don't feel like it's anything too different than what Nabal Viscaris has been doing, but, if you enjoy their sound, then I feel like you should still enjoy this, and I do. So, yeah, it's on this list. So, Nabal Viscaris with Exul. Really good stuff. Next up is Rotten Sound with Apocalypse. One of my favorite grindcore releases of the year. Not my favorite. We'll get to that later on in this list. But yeah, Rotten Sound just continue to release killer albums. This is just absolutely intense, just bludgeoning Swedish death metal influenced grindcore. Awesome. I love Rotten Sound. Yeah, Rotten Sound, Apocalypse. Next up is Smolder with Violent Creed of Vengeance. This is their second full length, and I feel like this outdoes Times of Obscene Evil and Wild Daring in just about every way. Sarah's vocals have gotten better, their songwriting has gotten better, the playing has gotten better, and the songs just overall, the songs overall just catch me more on this one. I really dug that they ramped up the aggressiveness and the heaviness on this release. My favorite track on this album by far was Spellforger. Spellforger was my favorite track on this album. I could not get enough of that fucking song. So Smolder, Violent Creed of Vengeance. Next up is Frozen Soul with Glacial Domination. Absolutely killer death metal from Texas. This is their second full length. And I think it's the best thing they've done so far. I really dug the interludes, in like between the songs where it was like these sort of like horror soundtrack kind of compositions, which I thought was really, really a nice touch. But yeah, this is just really awesome, fun death metal, especially if you're a fan of Bolt Thrower, I would say. So yeah, Frozen Soul, Glacial Domination, good shit. Next up is VHS with Quest for the Mighty Riff. So VHS from Canada, if you're familiar with them, you know that normally VHS, they just do like horror movie influenced or inspired kind of songs. From the Giallo stuff to, the Italian horror zombie shit, you know, they do it all when it comes to the horror genre. But on this album, they show that they're also really big fans of the sword and sorcery genre, and just this is a really, really fun album. Yeah, just killer fun death metal from VHS. I haven't disliked a single thing that they've done, and while this is different, it's also I also really thought the themes on here and everything were done really, really well, and it even inspired me to check out some of these movies that they were singing about. So yeah, VHS, The Quest for the Mighty Riff. Next up is Command with Death Age. Similar to Frozen Soul, this is really good death metal that I would say is very much Bolt Thrower worship, but it's done very, very well. And I don't really have much to say besides that. It's just, yeah, if you like Bolt Thrower, this is a really good death metal band that does Bolt Thrower style death metal. So, Command, Death Age. Next up, we go to Ulthar with Hellonomicon. And yes, I'm aware that this is a double album with... I actually don't remember the title of the other album. But, I don't know. I kind of felt weird putting them both on here just because it's so much material and just so much to digest and everything. I went with this one over the other one because I just felt like the songs were a little more memorable on this, and this album overall stood out to me a little more than the other one. I just found it more memorable, as I keep saying. But yeah, even though I didn't include the other album on here, and just one of them, the new Ulthar was absolutely killer this year. Next up, we go to Gatekeeper with, From Western Shores. The epic heavy metal band returns with their second full length. Unfortunately, I don't like this vocalist as much as Jean-Pierre, who also does Traveler and did Borrowed Time. I actually thought he was a better fit for this band, and I also prefer that first album to this one. But don't get me wrong, this new singer is really good. He's a great singer and still fits the material very, very well. And this is still a great album. I do still really, really like this. I just prefer the first album more by a bit. But yeah, killer epic heavy metal. If you're into this style, this is absolutely worth checking out from this year, no question. So that is Gatekeeper with From Western Shores. Next up, we go to Leather Bitch with Shattered Vanity. This is a Shadow Kingdom release, and this is their debut full length. This is just really, really fucking cool, catchy, fun, sleazy type heavy speed metal from, I think they're from Portland, if I remember correctly. But yeah, just really, really fun, catchy songs. A lot of guitar work that reminds me of like Merciful Fate in a lot of ways, and just, yeah, cool stuff. So, don't know what else to say about that. Leather Bitch, Shattered Vanity. Next up, we go to Crossed Hearts with Forced Perspective. I didn't really get to spend as much time with this as I would have liked, but if you like Warlock and Doro, or more specifically Warlock, the old Warlock stuff, I would say, this is definitely worth checking out. So kind of similar also to like Satan's Hollow / Midnight Dice. If you like that band and that stuff, this is definitely a cool one to check out. But yeah, I should have spent a little more time with this one, but I still felt like it was strong enough where it needed to be on this list. Just awesome, killer fun, straight up heavy metal. Good stuff. So that's Crossed Hearts with Forced Perspective. Next up, we go to Astriferous with Pulsations from the Black Orb. The label for this is Meisako and Oho, I believe, and this is just really like otherworldly, strange, atmospheric type death metal that's just very murky and just creepy sounding. Yeah, if you're looking for a death metal album that's a little different, then yeah, Astriferous. I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but that's my best way I can say it. Pulsations from the Black Orb. Another cool death metal release from this year. And we go to even more death metal with Ascended Dead, with Evenfall of the Apocalypse. Ascended Dead is just really abrasive, intense death metal that is still very, very listenable, but probably about as listenable or probably like on the edge, on that borderline of how listenable can we get while doing this abrasive style of death metal. I would say that's a good way to describe Ascended Dead's sound. But yeah, if you like Abhorrent Manifestations, their first record, I see no reason why you wouldn't enjoy this one as well. So, Ascended Dead, Evenfall of the Apocalypse. Next up, we are going to go to Speed Horror with Visions of a Parallel World. This is like a black speed heavy metal band from Germany that does things a little different. There's like some, experimental moments on here just to keep things a little more different and interesting. But yeah, I really dug the vocals on this. They were really like just cool, like sinister sounding vocals. Great guitar work, riffs. But yeah, if you like that combination of black speed heavy metal, this is definitely up your alley. So, Speed Horror, Visions of a Parallel World. Let me take a little drink here. Continuing on, we are going to my album of the year, actually. And, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I probably should have saved that for last. But just, I don't want to get confused since I'm just going in the order of how I wrote this down. So, but this is my favorite album of the year, and it is Majesties, Vast Reaches Unclaimed on $20 spin. I'm sure you've heard a lot about this one this year, but there's a good reason for that. It's because it's fucking good. It is really, really awesome melodic death metal with very emotional, tortured style vocals that are just very, very fitting for the music. Absolutely beautiful guitar melodies, but the riffs are still killer, and it's also got like just a rawer sound than what you're used to with a lot of like melodic death metal like this, because this is straight up Gothenburg melodic death metal worship type stuff. But this album, in my opinion, is still every bit as good as any of those albums that you can name, whether it's Slaughter of the Soul, whether it's Jester Race or The Gathering, anything. I think this is just as good as any of those. But yeah, this is an album that just really surprised me. I wasn't expecting a melodic death metal album to be my album of the year, honestly. But yeah, I gotta give it to Majesties, and this is their debut full length, and this is an extremely impressive first album. I just could not stop listening to this. It is by far the thing I've listened to the most this year, and hopefully I can get a physical copy of it soon. But yeah, Majesties, Vast Reaches Unclaimed on $20 spin. That is my album of the year. Next up is Blackbraid with Blackbraid II. So, as I've talked about on here before, I'm not the biggest fan of straight up just black metal. Black metal is definitely not one of my favorite genres, but if you can make it melodic and heavy and listenable with good sounding production and everything, I'm in. And I feel like that's definitely what Blackbraid does here, and I think this is even better than the first album. The first album I enjoyed quite a bit, but yeah, this is another one that I'm sure you're going to see on a lot of year-end lists. A lot of people are talking about this year because, once again, it's really, really fucking good. It's well-deserving. I forgot what his name is, but the single guy that does this project, the fact that he's the one that performs, writes, and records all this shit is, he's a very, very talented young musician, so I gotta give it to him. So, Blackbraid II. Next up is Organ Dealer with The Weight of Being. This is a very, very cool grindcore release that is just kind of reminiscent of, Wormrot, Nasum, stuff like that. Just really like in your fucking face riffs and just pummeling kind of stuff. Yeah, Organ Dealer. A very cool grindcore release from this year. Organ Dealer, The Weight of Being. Next up, we go to Soul Grinder with Filth, Encrusted. This is their second full length, and this is a really, really cool band, and one of the most interesting and different bands that are around right now, I feel, because Soul Grinder they're mainly seen as like just I feel like they're seen with all these other names within like this these newer traditional heavy metal type bands, but they're way heavier and far more extreme. There's thrash metal elements, there's elements of death metal, there's sludge stuff. They combine all kinds of cool stuff, but they all make it sound cohesive and just yeah, these are just really really fun songs to listen to. Yeah, I think they're one of the most interesting bands going right now. When I discovered their first album, The Prophecy of Blight, I was just very, very impressed with it, with just, again, how they combined all these different sounds and just made it sound really, really cool and, their own thing. So, yeah, and I haven't really seen a whole lot of people talking about this one this year, so you should definitely be checking this one out. That is Soul Grinder with Filth Encrusted. Oh man, I haven't done this in a long time. Forgot how much talking it is, and I'm already talking too fast. Next up, we go to the Evil Dead Rise soundtrack. I've told you guys how much of a big horror movie fan I am, how much of a big Evil Dead fan that I am, and I loved Evil Dead Rise. It's my favorite movie this year. And not only is the movie awesome, but the soundtrack is fucking killer as well. A lot of moments on this soundtrack really reminded me of Christopher Young's Hellraiser score, which I thought was really, really cool. So, yeah, this is one of the few non-metal albums on this list. And, yeah, I love the Evil Dead Rise movie, and this soundtrack is also killer. So, next up, we go to Cruel Force with Dawn of the Axe. This is a band that I just discovered with this release, but apparently they've been getting quite a bit of buzz on the albums that came out before this, but for some reason I'd never heard of them until hearing this album. And it was on its Shadow Kingdom release, so it was just kind of one of those things where I was checking new music on Shadow Kingdom, and I came across this and looked them up and see that they were called like a black thrash band, but I feel like, and I did listen to those previous albums before this, and to me, I feel like they went more with like a just straight up speed metal sound on this album, but it is still very much a blackened speed metal sound, I guess you could say, and you could still say it's black thrash as well too, I guess. But yeah, really, really fun stuff. Just killer speed metal. Lots of plenty of cool riffs. Yeah, just really, really good stuff. One of the most fun sort of listens that I've had this year, because I played this one a lot. So yeah, that's Cruel Force with Dawn of the Axe. Next up, we go to Horrendous with Ontological Mysterium. This is a very, very cool, I guess you could say, comeback for Horrendous, because it's been a little while since Idol came out. That was 2018. But yeah, once again, they continue to experiment more, push boundaries, and it's still very much a death metal record, but they're still very much continuing in that more progressive territory that they've been going in since they put out Anareta. But yeah, this one's more weird, more ambient, atmospheric, I would say, but still lots of cool stuff on here. Yeah, I like the new Horrendous quite a bit, and this is still a Season of Mist release. So yeah, that's Horrendous, Ontological Mysterium. Next up, Incantation, Unholy Deification. I don't really feel like I need to say much here. I've talked about here several times about how much I love Incantation. They're one of my favorite death metal bands, one of my favorite bands in general, honestly. And I like this record even more than Sect of Vile Divinities, which I felt that was a huge improvement from Profane Nexus. And yeah, this record's even better. They went for more... This isn't like back to the filthy sound like on Golgotha or Mortal Throne of Nazarene by any means, but they definitely went back to like a more dirtier kind of sound on this. Just more ugly, evil, crushing. Yeah, like I said, I think this is better than those last two albums that they put out. So yeah, Incantation, Unholy Deification. Gotta give it to him. Next is Knife with Heaven into Dust. This is their second full length. I loved the first Knife that came out. What was that, 2021, 2022? I forget when exactly, but still on Dying Victims. Just a really cool blend of black metal, speed metal, and punk. Very energetic, very in your face. Just a fun, energetic, listen, you know what to expect with this style. So, Knife with Heaven into Dust. Next up, we go to Mutries or Mutriers with Ronde de nuit. I don't know how to say that. I don't speak French. But I love their EP that they put out in when was that? Was it 2020? Yeah, I want to say 2020. But anyway, whenever that EP came out, I thought that was a very cool release, and this album is even better. I was really anticipating what this full length was going to sound like, and love it. It's a very cool blend of traditional heavy metal, speed metal, and punk as well. So yeah, really, really cool stuff. So it's Mutries or Mutriers with that album title that I can't pronounce. Next up is Of Darkness with Missa Tridentina. I think that's how you say that. This is a band that I've never heard of before, but I was watching Banger TV and Blaine had this on his Metal Monthly picks, and it sounded really cool to me. It's Funeral Doom, which I love Funeral Doom, so that's why I decided to check it out. And yeah, this is just really scary, atmospheric, very, very creepy sounding Funeral Doom. This is not the beautiful, melodic type of Funeral Doom. This sounds like you've been kidnapped by fucking cultists and are being dragged through these catacombs to be sacrificed in this fucking ancient ritual. That's what it feels like listening to this album. So yeah, this is scary, creepy sounding Funeral Doom. But it's really, really cool stuff. I only listened to it a couple times. I didn't spend a whole lot of time with it. I mainly listened to it during, Halloween time because it was a perfect for Halloween season. But Of Darkness, very, very cool, creepy. If you're looking for creepy Funeral Doom, this is a band to check out. Next up, we go to Celestial Sanctuary with Insatiable Thirst for Torment. This is a British death metal band that kind of rides that borderline between death metal and death doom. And it's very, very cool. I think I probably like this probably about as much as that first album that came out. So if you really like that last Celestial Sanctuary release, definitely check this one out as well. It's probably just about as good, if not better. Next up, Tomb Mold, The Enduring Spirit on $20 spin. I was highly anticipating this, like a lot of other people I'm sure were, and I was not expecting this kind of sound from Tomb Mold, but I still really, really enjoyed it. I think this is a very, very good album, and I also unfortunately think this is going to be the album that kind of separates Tomb Mold fans from what they've done before this, because they've gone in a much more experimental and progressive direction, much more melodic as well. And I think it's very obvious that some of the influences from Derek's other project, Dream Unending, they really, really bleed through on this release. You can really tell that he was putting some of that stuff into Tomb Mold on this release, but I think it actually sounds really, really cool and works really, really well. So if this is what Tomb Mold continues to do from here, I'm cool with it. And I mean, this is still Tomb Mold. There's still plenty of heavy, crushing death metal here. It's just more, they've just taken a more progressive and atmospheric approach on this album. But yeah, the songs are absolutely killer, great. They're just continuing to grow as songwriters, as musicians, and yeah, just progressing. And like I said, I know a lot of death metal fans are probably gonna start to turn away from them now, but I'm still liking what they're doing, and that's why it's on this list. So yeah, Tomb Mold, The Enduring Spirit. Next up, we are going to go to Gridlink with Coronet Juniper. I've heard this might be the last Gridlink album, and if it is, they're going out with a damn good one. Love this album. And this is my grindcore album of the year. Just, John Chang has lost absolutely nothing on his vocals. Takafumi Matsubara's guitar work is absolutely killer, as always. Just hyper speed, fucking technical grindcore that is just an absolute blast, and short but sweet, and you can just throw it on again and just replay it again and again. Lots of replayability for this album. So Gridlink, Coronet, Juniper. Next up is Dripping Decay with Festering, Grotesqueries. Sorry that my phone is going off right now. This is a very, very cool new project from Maniac Neil, who is from Blood Freak and Frightmare. And if you're a fan of those bands, this is very much in that same sort of style. And he also got Slasher Dave to do some guest vocals on a track, which was very, very fitting. And I know that Slasher Dave really looks up to that dude, because he's had him on his Cannibal Death Gods release. But yeah, Maniac Neil just unleashes some furious death metal riffing on this album, and just, yeah. I love that dude. I love his music. So, Dripping Decay, Festering, Grotesqueries. Next up is Spirit Adrift with Ghost at the Gallows. This is another very cool album from Spirit Adrift. It doesn't sound like anything that they've done before. Again, like I stated with like Tomb Mold, Nate and these guys are just continuing to grow as songwriters, as musicians, and they just really do not like to repeat themselves and don't like doing the same sounding sort of album again, but it still sounds like Spirit Adrift. All the songs are catchy and memorable, and yeah, I love it. This is just really, really killer modern heavy metal, and I still think Spirit Adrift are probably one of the best bands that are doing it. So Spirit Adrift, Ghost at the Gallows. And I'm actually probably going to make this a two-parter and stop here, because I guess this is what happens when you don't do this for 2 fucking years. So my voice is starting to get kind of worn out. So I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to end this with a part 2. So I hope you stick around and come back for part 2. So see you back for part 2 very, very soon.